Part 24. Fantasy, I am the big boss behind the scenes. Author, Guanyun Taoist. Chapter 231. P.S. There was an error when uploading chapter 230, which resulted in a duplicate chapter. It has been corrected. Readers who have subscribed can read it directly without paying extra. On top of the ancient coffin, there was a man sitting alone, drifting in the boundless sea of blood for eternity. Eternal and everlasting. And as Huang raised his sword and slashed, the boundless sea of blood was projected behind Huang. The being sitting cross-legged on top of the ancient coffin unexpectedly followed him and struck with the sword, causing shock in all directions. The majestic Dharma form moves with the wilderness, raising the illusory sword shadow in his hand and slashing it down with all his strength. Just like the supreme immortal king who reigns over the 9 heavens, he wants to wipe out all the monsters in the world. The void dissipates and time and space are shattered. The power of the sword is so powerful that it seems to contain the power of destroying the world and cannot be stopped at all. The immortal king holding the chaos stone axe shouted angrily forward, murderous intent swept Tianyu, and resisted Wang's attack. Boom! Finally, the chaotic stone axe collided fiercely with the ancient sword embryo in Wang's hand, causing a shocking collision. However, the final result caused an uproar among all living beings and made countless living beings in the dark realm fearful. With one strike of the sword, the unparalleled and powerful immortal king of the dark realm was cut out hundreds of millions of miles away as if it were made of paper. Even the ancient weapon, which was said to coexist with heaven and earth and would not be worn for hundreds of millions of years, was dimmed and even had a gap. Such a powerful force. The figure of the immortal king holding the chaos stone axe was distorted and illusory, and his muttering voice was full of disbelief. Although he is not his true form now, in order to cross the barrier today, he has prepared for endless years and gathered the power accumulated over millions of years on this king axe, in order to be able to use it today. But now, the Chaos King axe explodes with all its strength, which is enough to reproduce the power of his peak. The blow just now, even if he were to strike it in his true form, would still be the same as now. But now, his such a powerful blow was cut off by the opponent's sword, and the cut was so crisp and clean, it even directly wiped out most of his millions of years of hard work. If it were his real body here, I'm afraid he would be seriously injured with just this one blow. Impossible, this is impossible. The royal ancestor roared. Everything in front of him was beyond his understanding and unimaginable. Since he was born, he has never encountered an opponent. In the end, he dominated the whole life and was respected within the universe. But now, he meets a billion-dollar king. The immortal king of the same realm thousands of years ago is still so vulnerable in front of the other party. Impossible? The name of the sword is De Luo, kill you. Huang chuckled, swung the ancient sword embryo in his hand again, and slashed at the immortal king holding the giant axe of chaos. This was the strongest, highest, and fastest sword. This immortal king didn't even have time to do it. As soon as he made a move to resist, his head was cut off by the De Luo sword embryo in Wang's hand. Although what exists here, apart from An Ran, are only the Dharma images of several other immortal kings and ancestors. But at their level, has long been connected to the gods. Even if it is the Dharma form, it can burst out all its strongest combat power in a short period of time. But now, a foreign king's head was easily beheaded by Huang Yujian. This shows that, even if the body of this immortal king is here, he will face the same fate. An immortal king's head was cut off with a sword, and his blood spilled into the sky. This scene made countless creatures in the dark realm feel like they were struck by thunder. Gee, his face was pale and speechless. But many creatures on the side of the fairyland were so happy and excited that they couldn't help shouting and roaring. There is no doubt that this is an extremely exciting and inspiring scene. How many thousands of years has it been? Since the war several epochs ago, the immortal king from the dark realm has become an eternal nightmare in the hearts of all creatures in the fairy realm. Even the many masters guarding the borders of the fairy realm are worried. What they have done, is there any meaning in what they do? After all, in front of the immortal king, all obstacles are like paper and extremely fragile. They can defeat all enemies by themselves alone. If there is no top supreme existence sitting on the border, if the dark realm really invades one day, it will be impossible to stop it. This is the consensus of all the top experts in the immortal realm. But today, Wang's actions made their blood boil, as if they had been given a shot in the arm. Even though Huang only existed hundreds of millions of years ago. But after all, there was once a truly unparalleled master on the fairy land side. The king was so supreme that even the immortal king could be killed easily. And countless people on the dark territory side, living beings, are exactly the opposite. Their Taoist minds are unstable and panicked. The immortal king is a symbol of undefeat in the realm of darkness, and is synonymous with invincibility. But now, those who used to be high above are being defeated by hundreds of millions of darkness. The immortal king, praised and worshipped by the creatures in the realm, was so easily beheaded. This scene is like a nightmare, destined to be deeply imprinted in the minds of all creatures in the realm of darkness who witness this scene. It stays with them throughout their lives and will never fade away. Fantasy, I am the big boss behind the scenes. Author, Guanyun Taoist. Chapter 232. On the other side, Enran, who was moving with the immortal king, stopped moving forward after witnessing this and couldn't help but fall back. There was even a hint of deep shock hidden in his eyes. Wang's sword was so stunning and powerful, even far surpassing the eternity-spanning spear that stabbed him before. Because this is completely a contest that belongs to the current life. With one fell sword, he beheaded an immortal king who was attacking with all his strength. Looking at the past and present, I am afraid that no one in the realm of the immortal king will have such combat power over the course of hundreds of millions of years. Roar! The immortal king whose head was beheaded roared, and his head and body burst into immeasurable light, and finally came together to recast his true body. After all, he is the immortal king. He cannot be destroyed by heaven and cannot be buried by earth. Even if there is only one, it is difficult to extinguish the strand of thought that exists in the world. Now he has just been beheaded, so naturally he will not die so easily. However, although he has not died, the loss of face makes him feel more uncomfortable than death. Who is he? Darkness. The immortal king of the realm of darkness has risen high and is worshipped by hundreds of millions of creatures. But now, his head has been chopped off with a sword. The myth has been shattered, the legend has ceased to exist, and his image in the realm of darkness has also been shattered. Got it? Recite my name on the road to reincarnation, and I will liberate you on the road to rebirth. The immortal king murmured in a deep voice. He was unwilling to be defeated. The low voice sounded like a curse. Above the 9 heavens, black chains as black as ink were born from nothingness, and they were like dragons traveling through the 9 heavens, wrapping around in all directions. Rampant across the world. In just a short moment, it was like a big cocoon, sealing the deserted place, including the sea of blood. Every black chain was the power of this immortal king. They all contain unimaginable power, which can easily destroy the immortal existence. Now, there are so many chains of gods spread all over the sky. This is the comprehensive manifestation of the immortal king's Taoism, and it belongs to his battle, the full bloom of power. The dark divine chain blocked the sky, and even King Xian couldn't help but look solemn. This is an extremely powerful method, the manifestation of the Tao fruit of an immortal king. If it were him, it also requires an all-out confrontation. However, in the face of the immortal king's full attack, Huang always seemed very calm. He stood quietly at the end of the long river of time, watching everything so calmly. And behind him, the figure wrapped in endless fairy light sat alone on the ancient bronze coffin. There was a feeling of loneliness, that the whole world was falling, but I was alone. You are too trustworthy. The immortal king holding the chaos god axe roars. his move requires a long time to brew. Normally, if there is a being in the immortal king realm who encounters it, he will try his best to break it as soon as possible. But now, the opponent in front of him, but he didn't dodge or evade, and allowed him to concentrate on this style. Such behavior was simply too much. I am the fierce king, and I have lived through the past and present for hundreds of millions of years, but I have never met an opponent like you. Now that you can die under my style, you are honored enough. Kill. The immortal king named Lai Wang roared and waved his palms. The chains of gods in the sky seemed to be revived, and they all rushed towards the direction where Huang was standing. It looked like he was going to strangling him alive. In vain, useless. The calm voice spoke, making King Lai feel a chill in his heart. It was Huang Zhe who spoke, extremely calm, as if he was facing a trivial matter. He slowly raised the Delugo sword embryo in his hand. He only made a very simple action. Cut. Just like when he cut off King Lai's head with one sword just now. The Delugo sword embryo waved, and the figure sitting cross-legged on the ancient bronze coffin moved with the desolation. He also raised the Delugo sword embryo in his hand and slashed it down with one sword. The sword glowed all night long, slashing down everything. It is difficult to describe the power and grace of this sword, as if it was a sword slashed from the end of the long river of time from ancient times. It can permanently destroy all worlds and cut down all ancient history. No matter whether it is time or the world, nothing can resist the majesty of this sword. Nothing can describe the grace of this sword. Everything will be cut apart, no matter what, whether it was a tangible thing or an intangible thing. The billions of divine chains condensed by Lai Wang instantly became dim under the brilliance of this sword. Buzz. The sword light swept across, the chain of gods that stretched across the heavens and was condensed by the hard work of Lai Wang was not enough to see. In front of the unparalleled sword light, it melted like ice and snow in an instant. This was not a contest of powers of the same realm at all, but a kind of pure crushing to the extreme. The endless chains of gods were broken. No matter how much the Lai King roared and tried, he could not change this outcome. In the end, all the chains of gods were broken. But the edge of the sword was still not enough. Reduce, rush straight towards King Lai. Brush. Endless fairy light shrouded everything. When everything dispersed, the world returned to silence. Tick-tock. The bright red blood dripped from the 9 heavens, and in an instant it was like a downpour. It covered the entire sky. The figure of King Lai also disappeared without a trace. Heaven weeps. This is the scene when the immortal king falls. Some living beings looked at the downpour of blood falling from the sky and couldn't help but murmur. Legend has it that when the immortal king falls, the heaven and earth will be in mourning, and there will be a downpour of blood to tell the world. But now, the blood rain is coming, but the Lai King is nowhere to be seen. The final result is already obvious. Huang Yujian killed King Lai. Kill the immortal king with one sword. Lai Wang's death was like a signal, instantly detonating the scene. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Fantasy, I am the big boss behind the scenes. Author, Guanyun Taoist. Chapter 233. The great axe of chaos shrouded in black mist has been forged over an unknown period of time. Since King Lai attained the realm of the immortal king, it has become the supreme ancestral weapon of the dark realm, worshipped by hundreds of millions of creatures day and night. But today, the immortal legend has been shattered. The ancient battle axe that King Lai devoted his endless years of efforts to was chopped into pieces by Huang Yujian, shaking the ancient world. Scarlet blood rain fell from the sky and washed away the sky. It is difficult to describe what kind of scene this is. This is not the fall of the real immortal king. What has fallen is just the Tao and Dharma condensed by the Lai King for millions of years, and the ancient battle axe that he has refined. But even so, it still caused unimaginable changes in the world. In the deepest part of the dark realm, there is an ancient temple shrouded in endless black mist. This is a building that has been handed down from ancient times to this day. It is also a restricted area in the entire dark realm. No living beings dare to come here. Because this is the resting place of the immortal kings of the dark realm, and it is also the supreme place of the dark realm. This is an ancient quiet place, and there is usually no sound at all. But now, one of the ancient temples suddenly exploded. At the same time, an indescribable raging aura reverberated in this ancient sky, and with it came the endless anger of an ancient existence. Destroy my divine weapon, billions of years will be in vain, hateful. The ancient fluctuations are raging in the sky, billions of miles of void are shattered, the space is turbulent, and only the voice of this supreme being is echoing. At this moment, half of the dark realm seems to feel it, and countless people, the creatures in the dark realm, all look towards the place where the ancient temple was located, and at the same time they couldn't help but kneel down and kowtow devoutly. Their eyes were full of surprise and fear. They didn't know what happened to make the immortal king angry. Lai Wang, what happened? In the ancient temple, another supreme voice sounded, and there was a slight doubt in the voice. The dark realm has a rich foundation. This time it conquered the immortal realm, it used a power equivalent to 5 immortal kings. But even so, in the realm of darkness, there are still other immortal kings sleeping. This is the ultimate foundation of a realm. If the final decisive battle is not coming, these immortal kings will not all be dispatched. During the expedition to the immortal realm, something unexpected happened. The voice of King Lai roared, and there was a bit of solemnity in the angry voice. Although he had never been to the battlefield in person, everything that happened on the border of the fairyland was within his perception. It can be said that it turned out that the first expedition to the immortal realm should have been foolproof. But when the ancient monument appeared and the guy named Huang appeared, everything changed. 3 supreme beings emerged from the ancient river of time. And there are 3 in a row. Moreover, the combat power of each person is far beyond King Lai's imagination. It even gave him the illusion that the other party did not belong to this realm. Looking back now, King Lai couldn't help but feel a thought called luck emerged. This time, although his royal ancestors' soldiers were broken, after all, his true body never went there. What if it was his true body that just went? Can this outcome really be changed? Or, King Lai didn't dare to think about that ending. If this is the case, I am afraid that the entire dark realm will change. What happened? Our realm has dispatched 5 immortal kings. What can the immortal realm do to stop us? A few epochs ago, in that great war, we had already figured out almost the details of the immortal realm. We were just strong on the outside but strong on the inside. How could we be our opponents? Another eternal temple shook, and another immortal king spoke. Due to the natural chasm between the 2 realms, no one else could know what happened in the immortal realm except the 4 immortal kings who were present in person. Something unexpected happened indeed. What fellow deist Lai Wang said is true, but it is not the current enemy, but a peerless existence that appeared in the immortal realm countless years ago. Even we have never heard of it. It is really amazing. The ancient temple shook again, and another demon-like shadow emerged. It was an immortal king who, together with King Lai, sent out the soldiers of the royal ancestors to go to the fairyland. Whatever happened in the wilderness on the edge of the fairyland, he was the same as King Lai. Are all witnesses. King Jun, how is the battle going? Lai. Wang's body was shaken and he asked quickly. The chaos divine axe was shattered, and the divine thoughts attached to it were also shattered, so he didn't know what happened next. My divine weapon was also shattered. King Jun opened his mouth and told a piece of news that shocked all the ancient kings and ancestors present. My magic weapon is also broken. And the plans I had planned for hundreds of millions of years have all come to nothing today, how shameful. In the blink of an eye, Several more Wang ancestor auras rose up one after another. Like Lai Wang, they were the masters of the four immortal kings' weapons. But now, all the Wang ancestral divine weapons that the four of them had devoted their endless years of skills to it was shattered. This also indirectly proves the result of the battle at the edge of the fairy land. It is equivalent to the combat power of 5 immortal kings. Now 4 of them have fallen, leaving only the immortal king and Ran alone. Everyone, this is not the time to discuss this matter. If you don't go to help, fellow Taoist and Ran may be in danger of falling. King Jun spoke and broke the silence. The 5 immortal kings joined forces, and none of them was a match for the other 3. Now only An Ran is left. If they don't go to rescue, the outcome is obvious. Fantasy, I am the big boss behind the scenes. Author, Guanyun Taoist. Chapter 234. A moment ago, the fairy land was deserted. The shattering of the Chaos God Axe is just the beginning. Emperor Yetian's white clothes are floating in the air, his black hair is dancing wildly, and several ancient universes are ups and downs in the palm of his hand. Life and death, reincarnation, creation, everything is within the palm of his hand. Opposite him, King Qinchuo was holding the immortal king's sword, but it no longer had the same grace as before. He could hardly hold the immortal king's sword in his hand, and was beaten back by Emperor Yetian's divine fists. Come! The Emperor of Heaven opened his mouth and ordered all things, and the river of time was surging and boiling with it. This was a scene that reached the extreme of arrogance and wantonness. Qinchuo, the supreme and immortal king of the Dark Realm, was respected by the whole world and made everyone in the immortal realm an existence that trembled and feared. Now, a distant existence that has never shown any trace or legend in the world has resurrected from the long river of time and attacked the current world, knocking it back continuously. It no longer has any dignity of the immortal king and majesty. What shocked Qinchuo even more was that all his attacks were ineffective in front of this opponent. No matter all the wonderful methods and great ways, it was impossible to cause the slightest harm to this being named Emperor Yetian. Threat. This is undoubtedly a desperate manifestation, which almost makes Jiantuo's heart unstable. As the immortal king, he naturally has the supreme spirit to look down on everything and disdain reincarnation. Existences in this realm are all he firmly believed that he was the only one who was supreme and invincible in the world. But now, this enemy that emerged from the long river of time was crushing him from almost all directions, pressing towards him like an immovable ancient magic mountain. It was simply unbelievable. Suffocated. He didn't use any divine or Taoist magic, just a pair of fists, but he was able to break through all kinds of magic and Taoism in the world. Everything in the world was no match for this pair of divine fists and would be destroyed by them. Emperor Yetian suppressed Emperor Qinchuo and beat him. On another battlefield, Emperor Wuxi held the seal of reincarnation and fought against 2 immortal ancestors alone without falling into any disadvantage. Moreover, the 2 immortal ancestors were fighting against Emperor Wuxi. At that time, he was even a little helpless. Because every blow struck by the Emperor Wuxi was too powerful and strange, involving the mysterious power of reincarnation. Once the immortal king's soldiers were hit by it, they would suffer unimaginable trauma, and even be injured. It is very strange to harm the existence of the main body through the connection in the dark. Therefore, these 2 immortal kings are very restrained when facing the Emperor Wuxi, and they dare not use it at all. And Emperor Wuxi is also the same as Emperor Yetian. Generally speaking, there is a majestic trend of permanent invincibility. Facing the attack of these 2 immortal kings, they are not afraid, and they turn around and suppress the 2 of them. On the other side, many creatures in the dark realm have already been stunned. There was silence. Before, several immortal kings came across the chasm to conquer the fairy land. The creatures in these dark realms were almost boiling and fanatical. They shouted the name of the immortal king, feeling that the fairy land would be destroyed. At this moment. However, now, Only a short time has passed, but the situation seems to have been overturned. First, Prince Enran was defeated by a supreme being that emerged from the depths of the river of time hundreds of millions of years ago, and then, the immortal king crossed the realm, and two more equally mysterious supreme beings emerged from the depths of time. And as soon as they fought, Huan killed one of the immortal king's soldiers. Now, King Lai had just fallen for a moment, and King Mantian the blood is still flowing. Qinchuo and the other three immortal kings are now at an extremely disadvantageous position, and are about to be overturned. This is equivalent to completely changing the situation of the battle. On the side of the dark territory, now he actually fell into an incomparable disadvantage. This sword. The immortal king Enran stared at the ancient sword embryo in Wang's hand, feeling cold all over his body. Just now King Lai was beheaded, and he also felt something in his heart. It was a sense of crisis and despair that he was about to fall. If he were placed in the position of King Lai, I am afraid that the result now would be the same as King Lai. Even if you are lucky enough to block this blow, I'm afraid you won't be able to escape the outcome of being severely injured. The situation is not good and we should consider retreating as soon as possible. Enran looked around at the battle situation in all directions, and gradually made a plan in his mind. Although the battle is not over yet, Enran knew that the results of the battle situation in the other two places were not much better. Today's plan to enter the immortal realm must be thorough. Failed. Kill. Just when Enran was thinking about it, boundless rain of blood fell from the sky again. It turned out that after King Lai, the immortal king's sword was interrupted by Emperor Ye Tiansheng, and the immortal king Qinchuo also fell. Qinchuo's fall, like a signal. Emperor Ye Tian freed up his hands and went to help Emperor Wuxi. In just a moment, the two of them killed the remaining two immortal kings together. For a time, blood rained from the sky. It poured down, and the whole world seemed to have turned into a sea of blood. The four immortal kings all died. Everything happened so fast, in an instant, so fast that there was no time for people to react. Witnessing everything, Enran couldn't help but feel cold all over his body. He could no longer care about anything else. He turned around and headed towards the chasm. At this moment, even Enran didn't care about too much and completely abandoned the majesty of the immortal king. He wanted to escape from here. This place is too dangerous. If you stop for a moment, your life may be in danger. Fantasy, I am the big boss behind the scenes. Author, Guanyun Taoist. Chapter 235. Enran was silent, no longer caring too much, turned around and fled. At this moment, how can he still be as wanton and arrogant as when he just came across the border? Instead, the embarrassment was evident. But at this time, Enran couldn't care about this anymore. Now life is at risk, and everything else is vain. Even though the king who has cultivated himself to the point of immortality is aloof, he is not ignorant of current affairs. In fact, they cherish their lives more than anyone else. Eternal life for endless years enables them to understand the true meaning of life better than anyone else. Prince Enran actually escaped. It is unbelievable that the supreme immortal king can die in battle and be defeated. On the side of the immortal realm, all the geniuses from the dark realm were speechless. Looking at the direction Enran was leaving, the geniuses murmured to themselves. At this moment, they seemed to be forgotten, and no one cared about them at all. As witnesses of everything, they undoubtedly suffered the greatest psychological impact. From the very beginning, when I witnessed the arrival of the immortal king, I was extremely enthusiastic. In the end, the four immortal king's soldiers were shattered into pieces and safely retreated. All of this happening was simply unbearable for them. Especially in Enran's defeat, the faith in the minds of these geniuses from the dark realm almost collapsed. O supreme immortal king! Now they are retreating hastily. In this situation, I am afraid that any creature from the dark realm will face the same state of mind. No one will come to save us, We have been given up. A genius from the Dark Realm said in despair. The reason why they dared to cross the border was because there was the immortal king planning behind them. Now that the billions of plans in the Dark Realm have come to nothing, the immortal king has retreated. Will they still care about their life and death? On the side of the immortal realm, King Xian is still there. I am afraid that with just a thought, he can wipe out all the geniuses of the Dark Realm present. In other words, Enran did not take any of them with him when he retreated. Looking at them, it is enough to prove that these so-called geniuses have been given up. But it is normal to think about it. They are just geniuses. In an era, the vast realm of darkness, I don't know how many can be born. But what about the immortal kings? Countless even in the past era, one may not be able to be born. Therefore, the lives of these so-called geniuses are naturally insignificant compared with the aloof immortal king. Retreat. However, even though they were on the verge of death, these creatures in the Dark Realm still did not give up. Under the leadership of the Dark Elephant, they also fled hastily towards the edge of the fairy realm, hoping to escape with a chance. King Xian watched calmly. Looking at all this, he is not in a hurry to take action. Indeed, killing these geniuses of the Dark Territory can curb the future development of the Dark Territory. But for the current immortal territory, what is urgent is how to deal with the opponent's enemies. The immortal king and ancestor. Although today's battle ended with the defeat of the Dark Territory side, the strength of the Dark Territory cannot be underestimated. If not for the sudden arrival of Huang and others, I am afraid that at this moment, the immortal king and ancestor would have marched straight in and attacked. Entering the hinterland of the immortal realm. The entire immortal realm has been plunged into continuous flames of war. However, King Xian did not move, but Huang did. The sky monument trembled, and Huang's figure also appeared in front of the natural moat of the two regions. Now that you are here, there is no need to leave. Huang Qingyu, finally no longer silent, but took the initiative to attack, take the lead, and kill among the geniuses of the Dark Realm. This is the first time that Huang takes the initiative to attack, like a god coming, with unstoppable power. In addition, and today's Huang, the image of Huang in the minds of these Dark Realm geniuses has already changed drastically. You must know that this Huang in front of you will become an immortal king in the future, and his combat power will be boundless. He was just killed with a sword. He took the head of King Ancestor Qinchuo and killed him alive. Such existences, no matter what realm they are placed in, are invincible existences in the same realm. Even attacking across borders is as easy as flipping the palm of a hand. No matter what kind of existence they are, when the genius comes, I'm afraid they will all feel sorry for themselves. How can these geniuses from the Dark Realm dare to be enemies with such Huang? The gap in combat power, coupled with the change in mentality. At this moment, Huang is really like a tiger entering the flock of sheep. Normally, blood flows freely, killing in all directions. Kill. Revenge for Tianhao and others. At this moment, behind King Xian, the geniuses of the immortal realm saw their blood surge and rushed forward with low roars. The disastrous defeat of Tianhao and others just now made everyone hold their breath. Now, times have turned, and the situation has changed drastically. How could they not seize this opportunity? The situation on the battlefield below changed, and on the battlefield of the Immortal King realm, facing Enran's crazy escape, Emperor Wuxi and Emperor Yetian without stopping them, their figures slowly became blurry on the long river of time, and gradually disappeared into nothingness. The same was true for Huang, but before disappearing, he slashed out a sword again. The ancient sword light looked at the years. So powerful that it nearly cut Enran in half and broke it into two halves. But in the end, Enran paid a huge price and suffered severe injuries, but he finally managed to escape. But Huang did not pursue, but with Emperor Yetiandi like the Wuxi Emperor, his figure gradually blurred and disappeared. On the side of the battlefield, Qin Mu looked at all this and couldn't help but sigh. The combat power contributed by Huang Tian Emperor and others was enough. 80 million shock points could only be exchanged for Huang Tian the Emperor, and others took action for a moment, so naturally it was impossible for them to take action without limit. After all, the number of shock points needed to truly manifest such a realm was an astronomical number. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Fantasy, I am the big boss behind the scenes. Author, Guanyun Taoist. Chapter 236. The figures of Huang, Emperor Yetian, Wu Shi, and others slowly dissipated together with the long river of time that spanned eternity. Enran, the immortal king, also took this opportunity to successfully escape and return to the Dark Realm. Dark Realm Frontier. Fellow Daoist Enran returned successfully. Fortunately, it seems that the war situation has not developed to the point where we are unable to control it. When Enran returned, the immortal kings also happened to come from the depths of the Dark Realm and witnessed all this. Seeing that Enran was safe and sound, several immortal kings couldn't help but let out a long sigh of relief. In any case, the immortal king is darkness. The highest combat power of the realm is also the ultimate foundation. The fall of any immortal king is unbearable for the realm of darkness. And now, with Enran returning safely, there is naturally no better news than this. Fellow Taoist Enran, is there anything unexpected happening in the immortal realm? Qian Tuo Wangzu said in a roaring voice, with a hint of doubt in his eyes. Although Enran looks miserable and seriously injured now, he can successfully escape back to the Dark Realm with his own strength. This is Qian Tuo Wangzu's voice. Tuo couldn't imagine. After all, during the previous war, whether it was Huang, Emperor Yetian, or Emperor Wu Shi, they all had combat power that could crush the immortal king. Although Enran's body is here, his combat power, even if the Dharma bodies embodied by the immortal king's arms are stronger than those of Qian Tuo and the other four, they can never be the opponent of any of them. And just now, the immortal king's arms of the four immortal kings were all shattered. Those two human beings, the combat power of the strong has also been released. In other words, it is equivalent to Enran, who will face Huang and Yetian the Wuxi Emperor at the same time. In this case, even if Enran is killed instantly, it is not impossible. It's possible. Although the immortal kings tried their best to come, they were just doing their best to know the destiny. But now, Enran has successfully escaped. Although Qian Tuo and others are happy, it also makes them feel a little bit doubtful. After all, in their minds, even if Enran was not dead at the moment, he would never be able to escape so easily. Unless, something unexpected happened over there in the immortal realm. Something happened indeed. When I returned, the two powerful human beings who appeared later did not take action and were gradually dissipating. Even Na Wang's attack power has become much weaker, and he probably won't be able to survive for long. Enran said thoughtfully. Although he had just wanted to escape, all changes were under his control. If Huang still maintained his previous peak state, Enran knew very well that he would definitely not be alive. Come back. Now, the only explanation is that the three people could not have appeared for too long. After all, they came across the long river of history and are not really creatures of this era. Everything they do will naturally be subject to corresponding restrictions. It can't last long, that's true. Qian Tuo and other immortal royal ancestors could not help but nod. What Enran said was true. After all, Huang and the others were creatures who came through the river of time hundreds of millions of years ago. Even if they are really powerful, even the immortal king is no match for them. But they also have a fatal weakness, that is, they cannot survive in the world for a long time and can only burst out of power temporarily. In this case, do we still have a chance to return to the fairyland? An immortal king mused. Since the biggest threat is no longer suspected to be fighting, the Dark Realm's plan to invade the Immortal Realm may be able to continue. My opinion is, make a decision before planning, don't act too hastily. And Rand shook his head slowly and rejected the Immortal King's proposal. Everything just now was just speculation, and I don't know whether those Huang and others will appear again. If he rushes through the border at this time, if he is ambushed again, more than just a few Immortal King weapons will be damaged. The Dark Realm can be considered lucky. After all, what traveled across the realm within Ran was just the weapons of the 4 Immortal Kings. Although the Immortal King's weapons, which condensed the endless years of hard work of the Immortal King, are now broken, it is better than the fate of the true Immortal King's fall. After all, the Immortal King's soldiers can be recast if they are broken, but if the Immortal King himself falls, there is nothing that can be done. Now, although Huang and others have been suspected of disappearing, they have returned. Time passes. But no one knows whether they will appear again. And Ran was seriously injured at this moment, and he had just witnessed the majesty of Huang and others with his own eyes. Therefore, at this moment, he did not want to risk his life again. Return to the Immortal Realm. After Ayn Rand said this, the 4 Immortal Kings who had sacrificed their Immortal King soldiers and crossed the realm with Ayn Rand also nodded. They were witnesses of everything and knew how powerful Huang and others were. Naturally, they agreed with Ayn Rand's view. Seeing that Ayn Rand and others had unified their opinions, the other Immortal Kings also felt that what he said was indeed reasonable, so they temporarily extinguished the idea of invading the Immortal Domain and had no choice but to return to their ancestral land in the Dark Domain. Qin Mu didn't know that Ayn Rand and others, who had retreated in defeat, were still thinking of making a comeback. But even if he knew, he wouldn't care. Although Huang and others have disappeared, this does not mean that Qin Mu cannot reshape them. You know, after just some shaping of the secret realm, Qin Mu's shock points now have exceeded 3 billion. 3 billion shock points. This is Qin Mu's gain. If Ayn Rand and others really dare to make a comeback, Qin Mu can make it impossible for them to come back by just using some of the shock points. Fantasy, I am the big boss behind the scenes. Author, Guanyun Taoist. Chapter 237. The border of Fairyland is deserted. The war has ended, but on the side of the Immortal Realm, everyone's mood is still difficult to calm down. Even King Xian has too many doubts and shocks in his heart. The Immortal Sky Monument, Huang, Emperor Ye Tian, Emperor Wu Shi. Each and every incident is full of mystery, making it impossible to see clearly. On the other side, the killing of many geniuses in the Dark Realm is coming to an end. The courage of these geniuses from the Dark Realm had already been defeated, and coupled with Wang's entry, it didn't take long for all the geniuses from the Dark Realm who entered the Immortal Realm to be slaughtered. Although the geniuses who went to the Immortal Realm this time are not the top geniuses in the Dark Realm, they can still be regarded as the backbone of the younger generation in the Dark Realm. Killing these people can still greatly suppress the descendants of the Dark Realm. The growth of a generation. The benefit to the Immortal Realm is immeasurable. The Immortal King has retreated, we have won. Win. A near miss. Ha 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 ha, we won, we won. Many of the geniuses from the Immortal Realm looked at the corpses of the geniuses from the Dark Realm all over the place, as well as Ayn Rand's figure escaping hastily, and couldn't help shouting loudly. Everything they experienced today, for them, can definitely be regarded as the best thing in their lives. The most magnificent experience. Especially at the beginning, the side of the Dark Territory was domineering and powerful. Several geniuses from the Immortal Territory died tragically and their bodies were not found. These geniuses from the Immortal Territory thought that this was what they would face. The ending. But in the end, time turned around and everything changed. Not only did they survive, but they also killed these geniuses from the Dark Realm and avenged their previous revenge. When they were roaring with joy, these geniuses from the Fairyland, They all couldn't help but cast their eyes on Huang, who had not yet dissipated. And the eyes looking at Huang were full of reverence and awe. They knew that the reason why today's battle situation would be changed was entirely because of the existence of this person. Immortal Realm, the peerless genius from hundreds of millions of years ago, has not even been recorded in the annals of history. His appearance has changed the outcome of today's battle. It can be said to be a real turn of events, and a dazzling one. It's hard to imagine what kind of era it was tens of thousands of years ago. Being born in the same generation as such a genius is both unfortunate and even more fortunate. A genius from the immortal realm couldn't help but sigh. He was originally a genius from the younger generation in the Xianwang domain. He always considered himself to be unparalleled in talent, and was not afraid of or admired any genius of his generation. But at this moment, he sincerely expressed his love for Huang. He felt admiration. If he were of the same generation, he knew that he would never be Huang's opponent. This was a truly powerful and despairing monster. The ranking on the ancient monument was absolutely true. No one would question it at this moment. If such a being cannot be called the best in the two realms, who else is worthy? Being born in the same generation as Huang, I am afraid that there is no hope of winning in this life, and can only live under his glory. This is unfortunate. But at the same time, this is also a great blessing. Because there is such a being who can carry everything on one shoulder, defeat the dark realm, and protect the safety of the fairy realm. Fellow Taoist, I have some questions. Can you help me? Seeing that on the long river of time, the figures of Emperor Ye Tian and Emperor Huang Tian disappeared one after another, and Huang Yi was about to follow closely behind, returning to the long river of time. Finally, King Xian could no longer bear the doubts in his heart. In the blink of an eye, Emperor Xian came to time. Above the long river, the eyes looking at Huang are full of doubts and curiosity. He wants to know what happened billions of years ago. As an immortal king, although he has the ability to travel on the long river of time, on the power of the gods. But countless eras ago, it was an extremely mysterious and magnificent era. On the long river of time, those years were buried by mysterious power. Even the giants of the immortal king realm could not cross over and come there to know everything. Now, Huang has separated from those years and manifested briefly in the current world. Therefore, if you want to know what happened at that time, asking you Huang is definitely the best choice. You want to know what happened all those endless years ago, don't you? Huang Li stood on the long river of time, his white clothes spread out, and his eyes looking at King Xian were full of wisdom and calmness. He seemed to have already guessed the question that King Xian wanted to ask. Yes. Xian Wang nodded and said. Endless years ago, it was a magnificent world. Of course I know everything, but I can't tell you. Huang Jingping said. Seeing the doubtful look on King Xian's face, he continued to speak slowly. Because the cause and effect of those years is not something your current state can bear. With my level, I can't bear that kind of cause and effect. King Xian murmured to himself, his eyes finally showing a hint of solemnity and shock. Naturally, he would not doubt the authenticity of what Wang said, and besides, there was no need for the other party to lie to him. He was just shocked by Wang's answer. Is it just the historical truth of endless years ago, a cause and effect that even his level cannot bear? In this case, there is only one possibility. That is the historical truth from endless years ago, involving more than one terrifying existence above the immortal king realm. Only in this way can the power of cause and effect be implicated even by the powerful in the immortal king realm. Fantasy, I am the big boss behind the scenes. Author, Guanyun Taoist. Chapter 238. It turned out to be like this. King Xian murmured to himself, unable to help but become more fascinated by that period of history from endless years ago. As a giant in the immortal king realm, in today's world, even if the overall strength of the dark realm is higher than that of the immortal realm, the Xian King's combat power is still the top of the two realms. With his strength and vision, most things in this world have no secrets in his eyes. For a giant in the immortal king realm, all they want is to ascend to a higher realm and see more gorgeous scenery and a vast world. And now, from Wang's body, King Xian saw a magnificent world. There is no doubt that in that great world, even the immortal King Supreme cannot be called a true top existence. For a giant in the immortal king realm, this is a kind of pressure, but it is also an opportunity and challenge. This means that there is still a way forward, and he still has a chance to reach a higher realm. That being the case, I have only one question, which I hope can be answered. Xian Wang said slowly, his eyes gradually became serious. I wonder if above the immortal king, is there still a way forward? Is there a way forward above the immortal king? This is a doubt lingering in the hearts of all immortal king realm giants and immortal kings in this world. After all, they are already the top existences in this life, and they have never encountered anyone better than them. They are more powerful existences. Therefore, all the immortal kings are confused as to whether there is still a way forward for the immortal king. But now, the appearance of Huang has brought a glimmer of hope to Xian King. Although it has been over the long river of time now, the emerging Huang still only has the fighting power of the immortal king realm, but he is truly invincible in the immortal king realm. I am afraid that there is only a thin line between breaking through this realm. Perhaps, he may know something, and he knows how to break through the immortal king realm. Secret. Have. Huang Jingping spoke, but the answer made King Xian extremely surprised. Sure enough, there is a way forward beyond the immortal king realm. King Xian's eyes became eager and relieved. There is still a road ahead. For a being at his level, there is no news more exciting than this news. Where to go? King Xian then asked with some urgency. For him, apart from the safety of the immortal realm, there is probably nothing that can compare to the temptation of reaching a higher realm. However, as soon as he said these words, King Xian couldn't help but shake his head. Shaking his head, he felt that he was a little too eager. Although the existence named Huang in front of him was an invincible existence in the immortal king realm in the past, he had not taken that step after all. Asking him by himself was destined to be fruitless. However, Huang's next words couldn't help but make King Xian's body tremble. Above the immortal king, you need to walk your own path. Huang said slowly. Before the immortal king realm, there are traces to follow. After the immortal king realm, there is creation and even more transcendence. Every living being in the world who transcends this realm takes a different path. Regarding this realm, I have nothing to advise you. You can only realize it on your own. The voice gradually faded, and Wang's figure also faded. Finally, together with the long river of time, it dissipated above the 9 heavens. And the supreme realm Huang below also disappeared, and the immortal monument returned. Silence. Above the immortal king realm, you need to find your own way. King Xian murmured to himself, with a hint of shock in his words. Although Huang didn't reveal anything with these words, King Xian already knew a lot through them. Being able to give him advice in this tone is enough to prove that this existence named Huang may have transcended the realm of the immortal king in the past. That's right, since both Huang in the supreme realm and Huang in the immortal king realm have emerged, how can we prove Huang's true combat power? The reason why the immortal king realm's desolation appeared may be because Enran and others were able to defeat them all with just him. There was no need for him at a higher level to fight in the long river of time. And Wang's true peak combat power may be even higher than the realm of the immortal king. After falling from the 9 heavens, King Xian still couldn't hide the shock in his heart. With a move of his hand, he took the immortal monument into his hand and prepared to re-erect the ancient monument in the Bian Huang Emperor Pass. For the creatures in the immortal realm, this is definitely an unspeakable encouragement. Endless years ago, on the side of the immortal realm, there was a peerless prodigy who was more powerful than his contemporaries, overwhelming the dark realm and spreading the power of the immortal realm. Come back with me. King Xian spoke, and then returned to the immortal realm with many of the geniuses of the immortal realm. In today's battle, too many things happened. He wanted to tell King Lian everything that happened here. King Lian is an existence that is older than him. Perhaps he will get more answers from King Lian. And Ran fled, King Xian left, and the wilderness between the two realms returned to silence. And Qin Mu's figure also quietly disappeared from here. Appear. With 3 billion shock points, maybe I should continue to improve my level. Looking in the direction of the dark realm, Qin Mu said to himself silently. With his combat power, although he is now one of the strongest beings in the two realms, he cannot really crush them all after all. Elevate to the next level and continue to dominate. On top of all living beings, it is only safe to arrange it again. System, how many shock points are needed to upgrade my cultivation to the quasi-immortal Emperor realm? Qin Mu asked. To upgrade the host's cultivation level to the quasi-immortal Emperor realm, 2.5 billion shock points are required. The system replied. 2.5 billion shock points? Promote. Qin Mu didn't hesitate at all and chose to improve his cultivation. He couldn't wait to know what kind of scenery it was like above the Immortal King. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Fantasy, I am the big boss behind the scenes. Author, Guanyun Taoist. Chapter 239. As Qin Mu's voice fell, the shock points he had began to flow away rapidly. Along with it, his cultivation level also improved. Qin Mu entered the secret space immediately. Because the aura when he broke through was so huge and eye-catching that it couldn't be covered up at all. Breaking through to the quasi-immortal Emperor realm above the Immortal King, the overwhelming and terrifying aura will probably cover the entire immortal realm, and will definitely alarm all powerful creatures. Qin Mu wanted to hide behind the scenes. How could he choose to expose himself during a breakthrough? Entering the secret space, you no longer have this worry. No matter how much noise Qin Mu causes when he breaks through, it will not be known to the outside world and is very safe. The Immortal King is supreme, coexisting with heaven and earth, and can be called the most powerful being in both realms. And the realm of the quasi-immortal Emperor is transcendent from the realm of the Immortal King, and has also faintly transcended the shackles of the world. The world will decay but I will be immortal. This feeling became more and more obvious as Qin Mu's realm and strength continued to rise. It is a level of life that is superior to all living beings, transcending heaven and earth, and possessing unimaginable mysteries and mysteries. The creatures in the Immortal King realm and the realms below all bear the mark of this world, and there is no way to break free. The existence of the quasi-immortal Emperor realm has already partially erased this mark, and has vaguely broken free from the shackles of heaven and earth. After a long time, all 2.5 billion shock points were finally consumed. The aura in Qin Mu's body stopped rising and finally became stable. He slowly opened his eyes, feeling the omnipresent majestic power in his body, and couldn't help but admire. Is this the realm of the quasi-immortal Emperor? Only by visiting this realm in person can we know how terrifying the existence of this realm is. Although the Immortal King realm is only one realm away from him, its combat power is far behind Wu Fuja. The existence of the Immortal King realm, it is even impossible to imagine how terrifying the combat power of the creatures in the quasi-immortal Emperor realm is. Just like summer insects cannot speak of ice, if you don't experience this realm yourself, you will never understand it. In my eyes, there are no secrets in these heavens. Qin Mu's figure reappeared on the edge of the immortal realm. He reached out and touched the ancient chasm that spanned the two realms. A shocking thing happened. Even if the Immortal King realm existed, it would be difficult to cross it. 5 immortals. The kings of the Qin dynasty joined forces, and the ancient natural chasm, which could only temporarily open a passage when the natural chasm was weak, retreated backwards as if the ice and snow melted in front of Qin Mu's palm. Without any effort, Qin Mu opened it from above the natural chasm. A passage. If he wants, he can now go to the dark realm at will and pass between the two realms. The so-called natural chasm is nothing more than the rules of the immortal realm. After reaching the quasi-immortal emperor realm, all the rules in the world are no longer secrets in my eyes. Opening the natural chasm is naturally something that can be easily grasped. Qin Mu chuckled, and then stepped into the natural chasm passage and entered the realm of darkness. Qin Mu was also very interested in this ancient realm that was opposed to the fairy realm and existed from ancient times. And now he has entered the realm of darkness. In the domain, there is no danger at all. Even the giants of the immortal king realm are no match for him. They can be destroyed with a snap of a finger. Entering the dark domain is naturally extremely safe. When entering the dark domain later, Qin Mu felt that the rules of heaven and earth were completely different from those of the immortal realm. Fortunately, he was already a quasi-immortal emperor. With just a moment of deduction, he mastered all the rules of this realm and suppressed these original rules like an arm. All the rules of heaven and earth have melted into nothingness. But it is also fortunate that Qin Mu is a quasi-immortal emperor. If an immortal king comes here and suddenly enters the realm of darkness, and is impacted by these completely different rules of heaven and earth, his combat power may be reduced, falling down several levels in an instant. Although it will not fall from the realm of the immortal king, it is definitely the weakest moment. If any immortal king comes here, I am afraid that it can be defeated, and there is even a risk of falling. The rules of this world are actually much more complete than those of the immortal realm. No wonder Ran and others did not suffer much oppression when they entered the immortal realm. Qin Mu sensed it for a moment, and there was a look of surprise in his eyes. Although all the worlds have different paths to reach the same destination, the dark realm and the immortal realm are two completely different realms after all, and the techniques they practice are also fundamentally different. Logically speaking, the world of the two realms, the rules should be completely opposite, without any similarities. But now, after Qin Mu's investigation, he discovered that a large part of the rules of heaven and earth in the immortal realm and the dark realm are the same. Only a few parts the difference. The two feelings are as if the two realms originally had the same origin, but some unknown changes occurred later, causing the two realms to completely disintegrate, and then the fairy realm and the dark realm were differentiated. The so-called difference, it's just that the 10,000 ways in the dark realm seem to be controlled and integrated by a special force. Even the immortal king cannot see through this, and only those in the quasi-immortal emperor realm can detect it. It's getting more interesting. Qin Mu stepped forward, with a smile on his face. The similarities between the two realms gradually made him have a guess in his mind. But now he needs more evidence to prove this guess. If the guess is true, the origin of the immortal realm and the dark realm will undoubtedly be the biggest mystery of the two realms since ancient times. Fantasy, I am the big boss behind the scenes. Author, Guanyun Taoist. Chapter 240. Dark Realm. Qin Mu stood on the vast land and moved forward, observing and understanding everything in the dark realm. This place, like the immortal realm, is vast and boundless, and it is difficult to find the end point. Even with the dignity of an immortal king, it will take a long time to cross it before he can explore all directions. Moreover, the 10,000 laws of this domain are clearer and more complete than those in the immortal domain. If the geniuses with the same talent train in the immortal realm and the dark realm respectively, the combat power of the genius in the dark realm will definitely be higher than that of the Tianjiao who cultivates in the immortal realm. And as time goes by, this gap will become more and more obvious. It is precisely because of this that it can be explained why the number and quality of the geniuses in the dark realm far exceed those in the immortal realm. Because the way of heaven and earth here is more perfect and the practice is simpler, the number of geniuses and powerful people born after endless years of accumulation will naturally far exceed that of the immortal realm. The gap between the two domains in high-end combat power is precisely reflected by this. Other than that, this place is really no different from the fairyland. The heaven and earth are filled with spiritual energy and divine light. There are treasures everywhere, and creatures from the dark realm can be seen everywhere. Most of them are the same as ordinary creatures in the fairyland, with low strength, but because of the rich spiritual energy between heaven and earth, they also have long lifespans. Qin Mu moved forward and soon reached the depths of the dark realm, arriving at the ancient temple where the immortal kings lived. This is the deepest and quietest place in the entire dark realm. Only ancient temples are located here, lingering in the black mist, and they have existed forever. Taking a closer look, there are actually dozens of ancient temples here. Every ancient temple represents the existence of an immortal king. However, not every temple has the aura of the immortal king coming out. The eternal temple located here can only prove that there were immortal kings once born, and there are still some immortal kings whose true bodies are not in this eternal temple, but are sleeping in other places. There are also some immortal kings who have long since fallen in the long river of history, but the temples here have not yet been removed. Therefore, it is still a mystery how many immortal kings are left in the dark realm. But even so, the dark realm's foundation is still so strong that it will crush the immortal realm. It's a bit strange, how on earth were so many immortal kings born? Qin Mu restrained his figure and did not disturb any of the immortal kings. He stood among the ancient temples with a hint of doubt in his eyes. Although the rules of the dark realm are more perfect than those of the immortal realm, the birth of there are also more geniuses and powerful men, but this has nothing to do with the existence of the realm of the immortal king. The immortal king represents the pinnacle of a domain. The existence of this realm has never been born even for several epochs. The birth of the immortal king requires great talent, great perseverance, and great opportunity. All of them are indispensable. And this actually has nothing to do with the number of geniuses. Because only the top geniuses, coupled with the most heaven-defying luck, an immortal king can be born. In other words, even if there is a gap in the highest-end combat power between the dark realm and the immortal realm, there will never be such a big gap. And this question, even with Qin Mu's quasi-immortal emperor status, he is still confused and has not yet found the answer. However, I seem to understand why these immortal kings of the dark realm are so determined to invade the immortal realm. Qin Mu's eyes were shining brightly as he looked at the ancient temples, with a look of relief in his eyes. The rules of the dark realm are more complete than those of the immortal realm, but there are always differences between the two realms. Invading the immortal realm will unite the two realms into one, perfect the way of heaven and earth, and make up the way forward for hope. To be able to break through to a higher realm, is this the plan of the immortal kings? It stands to reason that the rules of heaven and earth in the dark realm are more perfect than those in the immortal realm, and this realm is vast and endless. There is no need to invade the immortal realm. It stands to reason that when you reach the realm of the immortal king, the immortal realm will have no control over it. It should have no attraction at all. But the result is exactly the opposite. After endless years, generations of immortal kings have never given up their ambition to invade the fairyland. Now, Qin Mu observes the immortal kings here. I finally understand their thoughts. The rules of heaven and earth here are obviously more perfect than those in other places in the dark realm. And this more perfect way of heaven and earth is somewhat similar to the rules of the immortal realm. Very similar. Obviously, this is the result of the immortal kings deriving the rules of the immortal realm and then completing the rules of the heaven and earth here. The real truth is probably like this. For hundreds of millions of years, the realm of darkness has never there are immortal kings who have broken through this realm. In their opinion, it may not be because of their own lack of strength, but because of the imperfect rules of heaven and earth. If they can merge the dark realm and the fairy realm into one realm, they can make up for it. The rules of the whole world. In that way, perhaps gathering the power of heaven and earth can help them break through to a higher realm. This is why generations of immortal kings billions of years ago were so obsessed with the fairyland and never gave up. The reason for annexing the fairyland.